إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن سيدنا ومولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد قال الله تعالى في القرآن الكريم بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم كنتم خير أمة أخرجت للناس تأمرون بالمعروف وتنهون عن المنكر وتؤمنون بالله صدق الله العظيم. After praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and sending peace and salutations upon our beloved Habib Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, I greet you with the greetings of the prophets, the anbiya, the malaika, the angels, and of Jannah, of paradise, of Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Throughout life, we are presented with the reminders. Dhikr is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala refers it to. Reminders. The Qur'an has a title as Al-Dhikr, the reminder. Because we as humans are always in need of reminders. We forget. And sometimes, at times when we're feeling all hope is lost, we need a reminder that no, it's not. And so reminders help us to reconnect with reality. The reality of this world, but also the reality of the afterlife, the day of judgment. Now the day of Jumu'ah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in Surah Al-Jumu'ah, فَاسْعَوْا إِلَى ذِكْرِ اللَّهِ. Rush, hurry to the remembrance of Allah. Because in Salatul Jumu'ah, what are we doing? We are remembering Allah. Whether it's through this reminder, whether it's through the Arabic Khutbah which we'll follow, and whether it's through the Salah. Salah is also referred to as dhikr, because you're remembering Allah. One thing that we must remind ourselves of, and other people of as well, is in terms of what Allah has ordered us to do, and what Allah has prohibited us from doing. Now when it comes to Islam, in those 23 years that the Prophet ﷺ received revelation, in it he was receiving a divine message that would shape the course of humanity. And if you think about where we are over 1400 years later, the revelation during that time still shapes us till this day, no matter where we're from, no matter where our understanding is. We know that when we go to the toilet, we enter with the left foot, and that we wash our hands we use the left hand to wash ourselves. All of this, down to the detail, we are taught. But what happens is, everybody is at a different level in terms of their Islamic education. Some may be just reconnecting, some may be absolutely brand new, and some may be very experienced but they've forgotten. So we're always in need of a reminder. And that reminder can come in many ways. It can come through the signs of Allah when we look out the window, when we look at the sky. I was speaking to one of my uncles the other day and I said, the A12 is a reminder of death, because the amount of foxes and squirrels you see that are run over, it's a graveyard. Constantly, it's reminding you of death. I think I saw about 2 or 3 on the way here. SubhanAllah. But we are constantly in need of that reminder. It can come through those kind of signs. It can also come through a difficulty, a trial, a calamity. It can come by you hearing a message. One of the things that really helped me when I started practicing is understanding this, that whenever somebody speaks, put aside the approach they put on. Forget the aggressiveness sometimes or the soft nature. Put that aside. What is the point that they are trying to make? And understand that it is Allah trying to communicate to you through that person. So many times somebody has spoken nothing about me. They didn't even know I was there. Or they don't even know my situation. But I felt it connected very well to my situation. It resonated very well with my situation. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will use people to deliver a message for yourselves and for myself. And so we have to grasp these, that Allah is giving you these lifelines, these reminders to help you reconnect. Other times, though, you'll see people committing wrong. And so, it is our duty to help correct that. And we'll get into ways of how to do that shortly. But when it comes to our duty, if you think about Islam, and then if you compare about other ideologies that are creeping into the Western world or being forced upon the Western world, you know, all the other ideologies, Christianity, etc., have succumbed to these. But Islam has remained strong. And one of the reasons that Islam is a growing religion is because we have fundamentals that we stick by and we don't compromise on. Our laws in Islam, our beliefs in Islam, you cannot change them. They cannot change with the tide of society. They are firm. And it is there because the emphasis is on the community, as I've mentioned before. And so within that, when somebody goes off that path for a moment, they need help. They might not realize it. You think about a child, right? And I think about my 5-year-old daughter when this happens, like if they're about to run on the road, what do? Do you just say, oh, Bismillah, go? No. You stop them. You take action. And you make them aware. You educate them. So that the next time that situation arises, at least they're aware. They'll have a better understanding. And you might need to repeat that a few times. Right? For my 2-year-old, I have to repeat that all the time. Without the care in the world, she just runs on the road and that's it, subhanAllah. You have to stop it. You have to put barriers in place. And so with us, when it comes to the concept of Amr بالمعروف, commanding to good, والنهي anil munkar, and prohibiting the evil, there are different approaches we can take. One is commanding to good. So we have our fundamentals that we have to do. Our salah, our zakah, etc., etc. Right? Now, if I speak to somebody every single day in an aggressive tone, they're never going to listen to me. They're never going to listen to me. But what you have to do is you have to be tactful. When it comes to trying to encourage somebody to do something good, first and foremost, make dua for that person. Understand the importance and the power in dua. That when you advise somebody, you are not coding them to execute a plan. You are giving advice and they then internalize that to say, okay, am I going to act upon it or am I not going to act upon it? All you are instructed to do, all we are instructed to do is give that advice. The prophets came because they just had to spread Islam. Whether somebody accepts Islam, it wasn't in the Prophet's control. Whether somebody listens to us or not, it's not in our control. However, we shouldn't get to the point where we don't try anything at all. Throughout the Qur'an, Allah mentions that people from Bani Israel were destroyed and they went off the path because they just left the concept of Amr بالمعروف والنهي عن المنكر, advising to bring commanding to good and forbidding the evil. Just as I mentioned about that, the child that's going to run in the road, that's going to be harm coming to them. We have to understand the reality of the Day of Judgment. That we are going to be questioned about everything. Every small thing. And that's another topic of its own, which inshallah we'll cover in the coming weeks, inshallah. But on that day, you don't want it to be where you start blaming other people. Because it's going to happen. Allah mentions in the Qur'an where people go around blaming shaitan, saying, why did you make me do this? And shaitan will say, I didn't make you do it, I just suggested it to you. You're the one that did it. And we'll go to other people saying, you made me do this, you made me do this, you made me do that. Why didn't you correct me? Why did you tell me about this? While our souls are still in our body, we have to try and save as many people on the Day of Judgment. So we have to advise people. Now, it's difficult sometimes for parents and children and parents. So sometimes what happens is you use external people outside the house, right? You have to be very creative at times with your approach. So I know, for example, if my dad's gonna get annoyed with something I say to him, I send my daughter. Because a grandfather's not gonna get annoyed easily at a granddaughter. So sometimes I'll mix up that tactic, and then that's it. That's done. Sometimes for a friend, right? If you're in if you're in a group of friends, that's not the time to point fingers. But you can go out for a meal, go out for a chai, and just have a heart-to-heart. It'll be good for you, it'll be therapeutic for you as well. And it'll be good for them that you give that advice. You can arrange your meetings that it revolves around salah. So you say, okay, let's meet at the masjid for Isha salah and then we'll go. Or Maghrib salah and then you go. Put worship at the heart of your advice. Right? The Prophet ﷺ was amazing. His approaches were unique. And there's even a book written, Al-Rasul Al-Muallim. The messenger, the teacher, the messenger. And it discusses the different ways he would teach people. Because essentially when you're doing Amr bil-Ma'ruf, you're trying to teach somebody something. So at times what he would do is, if he was very close to a sahabi, you know when you're very close to a friend, and you see them doing something absolutely haram, you don't even ask them what you do. Sometimes you don't even ask them what you're doing, you just get it and you just throw it. So this happened with the Prophet ﷺ. One sahabi had a gold ring. He was wearing the gold ring. And when the Prophet ﷺ saw that, all that came to him is, the people in Jahannam are going to be wearing gold rings. So he didn't just see a gold ring, he saw a ring of fire around his sahabi, his beloved sahabi, his best friend. Now what are you going to do? You see fire in somebody. Are you going to say, oh, let me just wait, I'll talk another time? No, he grabbed it and threw it aside. He took that danger off him immediately because he saw that fire. And then the hadith goes further, and it's in Riyadh al-Salihin. It goes on further to say that another sahabi, another man came up to him and says, why don't you at least, if you can't wear it, at least benefit from another way. Either sell it or whatever it is. Because you can benefit with the gold ring, you can't wear it, men can't wear it, but you can benefit, you can buy it, you can hold on to it for its value and then sell it on. But this sahabi refused. Because this is the love that they had, the love they had for the Prophet ﷺ. That he's thrown this away. I don't want to keep anything that the Prophet ﷺ disliked in that moment. I don't want to upset him. This is the love that they had for him. Right? Another time, a sahabi came into the masjid and he saw the Prophet ﷺ sitting there. And so he came up to him. And he was just saying, Prophet ﷺ was just sitting still. Now imagine how awkward that is. Just Prophet ﷺ was sitting still, and there's a man next to him, just in complete silence. And going on for a while, going on for a while. Prophet ﷺ turns to him. Have you prayed your 2 rak'ah sunnah? Have you prayed your 2 rak'ah nafil of entering the masjid? Hal sallayt? Have you prayed? No. Go on, go pray. So he goes and prays. Prays his 2 rak'ah, then comes back. And then the Prophet ﷺ says, did you ask for this? And he says, no. And he instructed him that in your salah, say this. But how did he teach that? He says, go pray salah, remind yourself what you're doing in salah, then come back. So he's got a reward of praying salah, but it's also fresh in mind. If I was to ask you, what did you pray for Fajr this morning? What surah did you pray for Fajr this morning? Most likely we've forgotten. Unless we're only reading Surah Al-Ikhlas and Surah Al-Kawthar, then we're going to remember if that's the only surahs we read. But besides that, we're going to forget. So when it comes to the concept of Amr bil-Ma'ruf, commanding to good, we have to really adjust it based on the personalities of people, upon the scenarios you find yourself in. And then when it comes to forbidding an evil, try to surround yourself where it's more difficult to do that sin. Have that company that makes it more difficult to do that sin. Yeah? Because over time, that sin will come out of you. Right? the famous hadith goes, Man ra'a minkum munkar, whoever sees an evil, فَلْيُغَيِّرْهُ بِيَدِهِ, then he should change it with his hand. فَإِن لَمْ يَسْتَطِعْ, and if he is unable to, if he cannot, فَبِلِسَانِهِ, then with his tongue, i.e. by speaking about it. فَإِن لَمْ يَسْتَطِعْ, and if he can't even do that, فَبِقَلْبِهِ, then hate it in his heart. وَذَلِكَ أَضْعَفُ الْإِيمَانِ, but know that hating in your heart is the weakest of iman. And then, so let's talk about that briefly. You see somebody doing a sin. You're in a group of people. If you stop it with the hand, you know that fire, that the Prophet ﷺ, the ring of fire he saw? He got it straight away with the hand. Sometimes you're in a group of people and only you notice the person doing sin. And you stop them with your hand. And that way it stays between you two. Because once you open your mouth, then everybody else becomes aware. Or you can, if that doesn't work, if you're unable to do it with your hand because he's all the other side and then people are going to notice, then you can change the topic. Use your tongue to stop that harm. But at the very least, don't let it go beyond hating in your heart. Because if you don't even hate the sin, then know that your belief is in trouble. The moment you become accepting of sins and you become okay with sins, there's a problem here. Just like there's a water leak in your house. You're not going to leave it. You're going to sort it out. If you leave it and you're okay with it, then know that's going to cause real problems for your house. Right? So, the other things we want to mention. We mentioned about dua. Have patience. Because you mentioned something once, it sometimes takes time for things to absorb. Right? Something's just happened and there's a lot going on. You've said it. Sometimes they just need to take a break, take a walk. After a few days, they'll come to terms with it. But you have to have patience with it. And with patience comes the way you speak. A lot of the people accepted Islam because of the Prophet's conduct, because of the way he spoke. And if he was harsh, then a lot of them wouldn't have accepted Islam, as mentioned in the Qur'an. So your approach and your speech has to be at the heart of the advice that you give people. And so in the final few moments, I've spoken a lot about giving advice. And so whenever somebody hears الأمر بالمعروف والنهي عن المنكر, they think, okay, look, I'm going to look out for sins now. I'm going to look for this is not the way. That's one half, yes. But the other aspect is we need to learn to be recipients of advice. We need to stop letting it affect our ego at times. If somebody comes with advice, they want it because they're doing it because it's for your benefit. They don't want to see harm for you. They want good for you. And so if you have that akhirah mindset and you know the realities of the Day of Judgment, you're going to try to save everybody. And so, my brothers, when advice comes to you, you don't have to respond to it, but at least listen to it and let it sink in. Really, really battle that ego within you. Don't think it's an attack upon yourself. Shaitan will make you think, you know what he's saying? He's trying to discredit you. What are other people going to be thinking about you? You're going to look weak. This is how shaitan comes to you. But if you let it sink in and you just have patience with this tongue, you control this for a bit and say, Jazakallah brother, thank you. And think about it. Your life will change. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us amongst those that when we receive good advice that is in line with Islam, that we take it on board and we act upon it. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from sins. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us a united ummah that is firm upon worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ameen. Wa akhiru da'wana anil hamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Innal hamdalillah nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruh wa na'udhu billahi min shururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina. من يهدي الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن سيدنا ومولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله وبعد. لقد جعل الله سبحانه وتعالى هذه الأمة أمة محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم خير أمة أخرجت للناس. وذكر من أسباب هذه الخيرية أنهم يأمرون بالمعروف وينهون عن المنكر، كما في قوله تعالى: كنتم خير أمة أخرجت للناس تأمرون بالمعروف وتنهون عن المنكر وتؤمنون بالله. ولتعلموا أن حياة الناس جميعا لا تصلح إلا بالأمر بالمعروف والنهي عن المنكر، ونجاتهم إنما هي في التناصح بالحكمة والكلمة الطيبة. ادع إلى سبيل ربك بالحكمة والموعظة الحسنة وجادلهم بالتي هي أحسن. قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم: من رأى منكم منكرا فليغيره بيده، فإن لم يستطع فبلسانه، فإن لم يستطع فبقلبه، وذلك أضعف الإيمان. نسأل الله أن يجعلنا هداة مهديين، وأن يحيي قلوبنا بذكره وطاعته، وأن يغفر لنا ما قدمنا وما أخرنا. قلت ما سمعتموه واستغفر الله إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. الحمد لله حمدا كثيرا طيبا مباركا فيه كما يحب ربنا ويرضى، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له العلي الأعلى، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا إلى يوم الدين. وبعد، عباد الله، فأوصيكم ونفسي بتقوى الله عز وجل، واعلموا أن الله أمركم بالصلاة والسلام على نبيه الكريم، فقال: إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم أعز الإسلام والمسلمين وأذل الشرك والمشركين. اللهم انصر المسلمين في كل مكان. اللهم اغفر لنا ذنوبنا وإسرافنا في أمرنا. اللهم لا تدع لنا ذنبا إلا غفرته، ولا دينا إلا قضيته، ولا مريضا إلا عافيته. اللهم علمنا ما جهلنا وذكرنا ما نسينا، وانفعنا بما علمتنا. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم، وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. عباد الله، إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي، يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. اذكروا الله يذكركم ودعوه يستجب لكم، ولذكر الله أكبر، والله يعلم ما تصنعون. وأقيموا الصلاة. استقيموا واعتدلوا سلد الخلل. Kindly straighten your rows. Ensure that the back of your heels are in line. Don't leave any gaps for shaitan. Allahu Akbar. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. سبح اسم ربك الأعلى الذي خلق فسوى والذي قدر فهدى والذي أخرج المرعى فجعله غثاء أحوى سنقرئك فلا تنسى إلا ما شاء الله إنه يعلم الجهر وما يخفى ونيسرك لليسرى فذكر إن نفعت الذكرى سيذكر من يخشى ويتجنبها الأشقى الذي يصلى النار الكبرى ثم لا يموت فيها ولا يحيا قد أفلح من تزكى وذكر اسم ربه فصلى بل تؤثرون الحياة الدنيا والآخرة خير وأبقى إن هذا لفي الصحف الأولى صحف إبراهيم وموسى. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. إذا جاء نصر الله والفتح ورأيت الناس يدخلون في دين الله أفواجا فسبح بحمد ربك واستغفره إنه كان توابا. الله أكبر.